our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, good afternoon. Great to see you. This trip is being seen as a fresh start in relations between Brazil and the United States. What's topping the agenda?
Exactly that, the fresh start, however you want to phrase it, a reset in the relationship between Brazil and the U.S. following what can only be termed a tumultuous, chaotic, convulsive era in which far-right politics and politicians held sway, both in the United States and in Brazil. Lula's predecessor, Bolsonaro, was clearly took inspiration from Donald Trump's playbook. He was called the Trump of the tropics. And what you basically have is, and you said it in the introduction, the context here is extraordinary. Lula is in the U.S. 1 month after a rabid mob, and that's my word, rabid, because I don't see another word to describe it, of far-right supporters of Jair Bolsonaro, the defeated president from the election, from October's election, basically stormed the main institutions of Brazil, very similar to what we saw in the January 6th insurrection.
It's funny, both presidents had insurrections. Joe Biden just a few days before he took
mirror images, practically. So they're both there. These are both presidents who have been on the receiving end of the virulence, the thinly veiled and not so thinly veiled violence wrought by disinformation and misinformation, and what happens when mobs and crowds are driven by conspiracies and the far right, there's no other way to put it, demagogy of their champions. Now, what we're going to see at the meeting, obviously, is a lot of mutual talk of supporting democracy, supporting democratic values, but there's another important issue on which they see eye to eye, beyond just trying to embrace each other and try to shore up the democratic fortress in still trying times. Remember, Lula's in a still very delicate position at home. Environment. Remember, Lula ran on trying to overturn the devastating legacy of deforestation in the Amazon wrought by his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro, who couldn't care less about the Amazon, the rainforest, the climate, the environment, nothing. So they're going to try to turn that page as well. He's been very strident in making it known. He's talked to climate summits recently saying, Brazil is back fighting the good fight for preserving the planet and preserving the climate.
So, there's a fresh start in relations, but Biden and Lula da Silva don't see eye to eye.
It's a Freudian slip.
Don't see eye to eye on many issues.
No, I mean, they're not exact doppelgangers, if you will. Sure, they see eye to eye, like I said, on the climate issues, on supporting democracy, the fact that they both went through near political death experiences. But on the other hand, take Ukraine. Massive issue here, right? They definitely diverge. Bolsonaro is part of the BRIC bloc, right, with Russia and China, the emerging democracies, which has sort of taken pride in standing up against sort of the group of 7 nations, and notably the United States as well. And his leftist brand of politics, Lula, has basically cut against the grain with Biden's Ukraine policy. Brazil has signally not lent military aid to Ukraine in its fight to repel Russian forces, the invading Russian forces. It has not been on board in the Ukraine fight there. Yes, it stands up for democracy and sovereignty of a nation, but Lula is much more in favor of, and we hear this from a lot of a negotiated solution, not giving the benefit of the doubt so much to Ukraine or Russia, but seeking negotiation. We know that this policy is anathema. The U.S. loathes that sort of policy. They say this is not the time right now for negotiating when basically Ukraine is right now being massively bombarded by Russian forces who show no sign of withdrawing, let alone backing down. So Ukraine, they're going to diverge a lot. And on a lot of just other issues in general, Brazil's going to be more aligned a lot of the time with Russia and China in that BRIC group. And that's just a matter of the way geopolitics align.
Let's see how this visit pans out. Thank you very much for that, Douglas Herbert.